All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about animation and how to add animation into your website. So we've already seen that with the transition property, where you can use the transition CSS property, and you can animate the in-between state from the initial to the end state. And so, for instance, if I hover over this, our initial state is this a red box, probably like 200 by 200. The end state is that the width is going to be increased to about 900 pixels probably. The background color is going to go to purple, and we're going to increase the border radius to kind of give these curvature edges. So that's with transition, there's two states. There's the initial state, right, which is this red box, and there's the end state, which is this purple box that has the rounded corners. So the next CSS property here is this animation property. And essentially, the animation property can pretty much do everything that the transition property can do, but it's a little bit more powerful. It has these things called the keyframes. So if you've ever done any video editing, you'll be familiar with this term of keyframes. But with the keyframe, you can pretty much animate anything in between, or anything between the initial and the end state at various stages. So you can do like percentage here, right? So 0%, we can basically call on these properties to trigger. At 25%, we can call on these declarations to trigger. 50%, and you can add as many as you want. So you will first define your keyframes, right? In the various stages you will want to animate in between the initial and the end state. And then when you go to declare whatever item you want to animate, you will target it using a selector in CSS. You would give it some initial state, the default CSS, which is going to be, in this case, 100 pixels by height, 100 pixels by 100 pixels. The background is going to be red. And then here's the key. You can just use the animation. The WebKit is to get other browsers to work with animation. It's basically for browsers who are not supporting the animation CSS property. But at this point, most browsers are supporting the animation CSS property. So you can just use the name animation, and then what you're going to do is the first value is going to be the actual keyframe name. So you say at keyframes, give it a name. It could be any name of whatever you desire. In this case, we just have moving box, how long the duration is going to last for, and then how many times do you want that animation to occur. You can't say infinite, which basically is going to continue to animate until you close the browser. So if we just go and take a quick look at the definition on W3 schools. Here's our animation property, right? And there's a lot more other values you can specify for the animation property. Like I said, here's kind of what I've done here. It was basically the name of the keyframe, the duration, and then how many times you want that animation to occur. But here's some more specific CSS properties that you can use to target certain parts of the animation. So animation name, animation duration, the timing function, delay, and so forth, the play state. And then this side, I kind of give you an example of each one of these here. So running or paused. So you can pause it, you can run it at certain times. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. So here's a few examples. So here, don't look at this too long. This may make some people dizzy, or whatever it may just disorient you. So don't look at it for too long here. But another one here I just want to take a look at is this one I just quickly built. I just kind of did one that had a dancing theme here. So here I have a container on lines 2 and 4. So 2 is my opening div tag, and 4 is my closing div tag. And what I've done here is that I've defined kind of like an area for my dancing GIF images to be displayed within. So here I gave it a 200 by 200. I'm sorry, the surface. Here I gave it 1,000 pixels by 500. Which is the available space. So if I were to put a border around this, you can actually see the space that I made available for my images. So 2 pixels, solid black, and it's just a container, right? But this is where I'm going to use this position property that says relative, and then I'm going to change out the background image for this tag that's on the line number 3. So all this is my HTML setup here, and then I have some CSS property that's going to give some style to these two particular elements here, surface and the ID dance. So here, if I go back, here's my keyframe. I called it disco ball. I'm not sure why I named it disco ball. I should just probably say dancing characters, right? And whatever I use here as my keyframe name, right, I have to use down within my animation property. So instead of saying disco ball, I'll just put dancing characters, and that should bring back my characters here pretty soon. Here I put 20 seconds, right? That's the duration. And here I said infinite, right? I want this to continually go on as is rendered in a browser, right? And so the big thing here is that I'm using the animation property. Here's where I pull in my keyframe, right? How long the duration is going to occur. It's going to occur for 20 seconds, and it's going to infinitely loop. And then here's where I'm defining my keyframe, right? I use the @keywords CSS rule, but then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different frames that I'm providing some CSS to, right? And you can pretty much put any CSS declaration in between for the various frames that you have. And so if I wanted to change the background here for my frame of 30%, I can say background, or I can say, let's say I want to change the size and make, let's change the size for this background image and make it pretty big. So we'll say background image or background size, and let's just give it 200%. Now this is going to be extremely big, but watch what happens here. And it's actually, because it's within this dance of 200 by 200, we don't see kind of, you know, the full essence of that image here. But anyway, you can do a number of different things here with this here. So anyway, this is a quick example of how to use keyframes. And like I said, you can get creative with this. You can do a lot of cool things with animation. Like I said, there's some visual appeal that you can add into your site. This one is just something I put together real quick, so there's really no purpose or meaning behind this dancing keyframe, but just to kind of show you that you can get really creative with some of these things. Hey, in the next video, we're going to talk about some different CSS libraries. One library here that I'll use is called Animate.css. It essentially is just an external library that I can plug into my site and begin to use some of the functionality. So that'll be a real short video where we just talk about some different libraries, and I'll just kind of give an example of how to use that library. So stay tuned.